Hello everyone, welcome to my channel to share your story. In this video, we have Dr. Shen to share her story. Hope you like it.
My name is Jacqueline Shen. I was born and raised in Orlando and grew up loving animals, and so it's kind of a funny story because my parents both said that they were allergic to animals. They didn't want to have animals in the home, and so I ended up spending all my time like playing with my friends as animals or the neighborhood animals, feeding them, things like that. So my interest started ever since I was really young, and then thankfully ended up being able to go to vet school here at the University of Florida. So I've been a practicing small animal veterinarian for about 5 years now.
5 years?
5 years, yeah. Yeah, so I graduated 2018 from UF Vet School in Gainesville.
So what kind of education and training have to get to turn to be a vet doctor?
Yeah, so it takes about, the vet school itself is 4 years after usually people finish an undergraduate degree. You don't have to do that. But I guess leading up to it, a big part of your vet school application, which is kind of the hardest part in getting to become a veterinarian, is getting a lot of experience with animals. So that was something that I was really thankful to have exposure to. I kind of mentioned that we didn't grow up with animals, but because I was really interested, I ended up shadowing, which is just following around a veterinarian who was my sister's friend's mother. So throughout high school, I just followed her around her clinic. She was a small animal dog and cat veterinarian, Dr. Jones. So she was awesome, and just being able to watch her. It's different seeing it in person than on TV. Like, I would watch a lot of vet shows on TV for sure, but yeah, just seeing how she interacted with her clients and doing surgery and a lot of procedures. That was a really great experience. So that kind of going into college really solidified for me that that would be something I'd love to do if I could get into vet school. Definitely having to make pretty good grades in undergrad, which is difficult, but yeah, I think the vet schools really care about your experience going in. They want to know that you are open-minded into trying a lot of things and have been exposed to a lot of different animals or species. Also like leadership skills, because as a doctor you're kind of in charge of a team of a lot of people. So I was really blessed to get experience with a lot of different types of animals. Worked at a dairy unit for a summer, went to Busch Gardens and did some research with elephants, which was really, really cool. And then a lot of dog and cat experience over time. So I think those things were really helpful for me for getting into vet school, which was really, really great. Also very, very fun to do all those things.
So all different kind of animals.
Yeah. They, large animals and small animals, they want you to have exposure to all of them ideally before going to vet school, because the curriculum is still the same. Whether you're for sure you want to go to dog and cat medicine, you still have to learn and pass all the tests for all the horse and cow medicine, cattle, dairy type things. So it is really, really helpful to not only physically feel comfortable handling large animals, because it's different how you handle a horse versus how you handle a dog or cat, but also learning wise, in order to pass our national boards tests, we need to be tested on a variety of species. So, yeah,
You need a lot of knowledge.
Yeah, it's a lot of different, because the animals themselves are so different. Their anatomy is different. I know we were talking about anatomy for depending on whether they eat meat or they don't eat meat, their digestive systems are different, or the diseases that they can get are different. So So that's why it's really important to get that experience before vet school, and that'll really help solidify all the information, because it's a lot of information they spill on you in 4 years, so that'll help kind of keep it in your brain for when you need to take your tests and even into the future. So yeah.
So you work in Orlando Clinic for 5 years, but during these years, have some very memorable things you can share or what?
Yeah. I mean, I think my favorite parts of the day are seeing, the same clients back, getting to know people that I've known for a while. I haven't done that in a while because right now I'm working as a relief vet, meaning that I fill in at different clinics when they need me to. But back when I was practicing at just one clinic for a few years, I really enjoyed building relationships with people and just seeing animals back over time. But yeah, definitely there's always, the day in the life of a vet is always different, and there's always interesting stories. One of my favorite ones is, this is maybe like 2 weeks after I started working as a vet. Someone came in with like something in a laundry basket, and they were like crying and really, really distressed, and we didn't even know what was happening because it was just kind of this gray thing. So it turned out that this cat had accidentally been washed through the washing cycle. So it was in with all the clothes, so I guess it was just sleeping. She dumped it in the wash cycle and didn't even think about it. She was like, thankfully it was a quick wash, but we're like, so we checked to make sure the cat was stable. It was a long-haired cat, so it was like all the hair was all crazy looking, and it smelled really strongly of detergent, but its heart and lungs sounded great, which is awesome. It was breathing on its own, just looked really stunned, and so we took x-rays, everything looked great. So I was like, wow, 2 weeks in, I've already witnessed like a miracle. We didn't even have to do it, we just kind of, watched it for a while and made sure everything was okay. So you never know what's gonna come in the door, so that was one of the really kind of memorable moments.
That feels scary too.
Yeah.
So it's okay, everything okay?
Everything was fine. So yeah, it was a miracle. So just seeing the animals just get into trouble all the time. We had a dog who he just loved eating like pacifiers. So because the owners had just had a baby, and he would continuously eat the pacifier. So it was just like every time we'd see him, like, oh, did you eat another pacifier? Like we know them all by like we know their phone number when they called, and we'd have to get him to throw it up and all that stuff. So you just get to know some people over time, and getting to know your clients' personalities and their animals' personalities. That's always a really reward.
So during the treatment, how do you balance the needs of your patients and with the needs of the owner?
That's a really good question. I feel like that's one of the hardest parts about being a vet, because I think every vet that you talk to goes to school because they love animals and they want to do what's best for the animals, and because technology and research has really advanced medicine so much further in these last few decades, that there's a lot that we could technically do for them, but whether it's in their best interest and whether it's what their families can afford or manage is always a really tough balance. So it's something that coming out of school is a really difficult thing to learn, because you want to offer all the best medicine, which I still think is important to do, but at the same time be very conscious of what people are capable of doing, or what won't cause strain to what we call the human-animal bond. So the relationships that clients have with their patients are really important to us. So even things like, we could give this cat medicine orally, every day for the rest of its life, but if every time the owner has to catch the cat and give it medicine and it makes it a really bad experience, then that may not be the best thing for that particular patient, even though it would cause the disease to be managed. So So that's always challenging, and I think over time my personal philosophy about it is still I need to offer the best medicine and offer treatment that I would wish that they would be able to do, but also be very practical and telling them what clients what the difficulty is, how much long term this is going to cost, and be flexible with working with each individual situation. But I do think that we still hold the animals' quality of life at the highest. So if, for example, we're offering lots of different tiers of treatment, and whether financial or personal or any other kind of reason the owner isn't able to do it, then as a veterinarian I think it's my job to say, well, if we can improve their quality of life, then humane euthanasia is the best option. So giving them euthanasia, the term means like a good death, and we really believe in that, and that we don't want animals to suffer needlessly. And so that's always a tough conversation to have, but at the same time I think it's one that veterinarians feel very privileged to have, in terms of being able to advocate for the patients and say, hey, that's okay that we don't want to pursue more treatment, but if that's if that's what we've decided, then I think humane euthanasia would be the best option. So a lot of hard conversations every day. It's kind of like whiplash in the clinic, where you'll have a really tough kind of end-of-life conversation, and the next will be a puppy visit, and then the next one will be a dog that swallowed a pacifier, or a cat that just got washed in the washing machine. So lots of ups and downs every day, but I think the most, I know we were kind of talking about what's the challenging thing about being a veterinarian. I think the most challenging is when you are able to help, but there's some barrier to helping, whether it's financial or otherwise. So that is really difficult in terms of knowing that you could help but not being able to. I guess that just wanted to touch on that, as they're kind of linked in terms of managing client and patient needs, and then also kind of my own personal need and mission to help as much as I can. So yeah.
Most things doing this kind of job, from your heart you love animals.
Yeah.
That's, otherwise you can't do this job.
Yeah, and I think you need to love people too, because if not, then
you
would get really frustrated all the time, and so that's the difficult part. I think there's a big crisis in veterinary medicine of mental health issues, and we lose a lot of our colleagues to suicide because it is difficult to have all these really emotional moments during your day, and kind of have it day in and day out too. So it is something that I think as veterinarians we want to kind of educate the public that it is a difficult job, and every veterinarian is doing their best, whether you have a long wait time or you feel like, oh gosh, the treatment's really expensive. Most of the time the vets aren't in charge of setting prices or doing anything like that. So it's difficult, because in human medicine there's insurance and things like that kind of mitigate the cost, but for us, we're very aware that that money is a big issue, and so that can be kind of emotionally draining over time.
So the school are prepared for you to deal with this kind of situation?
Well, I guess the short answer is I feel like no, because we spend so much time in our kind of academic rigor. There's so much to learn in terms of medicine, especially because dogs and cats are so different, and even if you're doing large animal, cattle and horses are so different. So I think they're doing a better job as time goes on addressing these more kind of emotional topics or interpersonal topics, but I feel like it's still kind of a shock to start working and having to have these conversations, day in and day out. And we kind of talked about it, like, it would be great if we had a script for, but for managing things, but every situation is so unique, and every, family is so unique, so there's no great cookie cutter way to approach everything. So a lot of it, I think I draw from either my experiences right when I started, so it was really, really important for me to find a good mentor when I first came out of school, because you have a lot of head knowledge, but it's hard to start the practice of actually, and that's why I call it a practice. It's something that we always are trying to improve on. But I think I learned a lot from the first couple of veterinarians that I worked with. And even just thinking back to my high school experiences, that's why shadowing is so important, because I remembered watching other people have those conversations and kind of, taking phrases or things that I felt like were really helpful. But yeah, I do think that your personal kind of philosophy on life also plays into that, and your own personal experience too. So I would say that school, while we learned a lot of really important things, there were a lot of hard conversations that we didn't learn how to have, and it's something that, I guess veterinarians would always want grace for awkward situations, because it's hard for the clients, but it's also hard for the vet too. So that's another thing that I think over time I've become a lot more comfortable with, but there's always still hard days where you go home, you're like, I should have said it different, or I should have done things differently. So always learning and growing.
Thank you for your sharing your experience. So next time if you have someone interesting, then maybe come here again.
Sure, yeah. Thanks so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
It's an honor.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for watching.
If you would like to share your story, visit our website at shareyourstory.chat.